The M2 MacBook Air. What comes in the box and is it any good? Let's find out. First off, I would like to say thanks to Apple for letting me borrow this M2 MacBook Air. I do have mine that will come in the day after this video comes out, but for right now, let's see what actually comes in the box. I'm very excited about this. Looks like we have a very standard Apple opening. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Still boring there. Apple. If you guys watch my video, you're gonna let me borrow this. Add just a little bit of friction right here, so when we open it, there's like that satisfying. It's like you're opening up a Christmas present. Okay, boom. Let's get this out of the way. They did send over the 8 gigabytes of unified memory, 512 gigabyte solid state drive. You can see it's now a 13.6-inch MacBook Air. We get the 10-core GPU. This is the upgraded processor, the upgraded solid state drive. Here we go. Now they did send me the Starlight version. I have the Midnight on purchase, and I'm very excited about that. But Starlight has been one of the new colors that Apple's come out with that I have liked a lot. So we get the documentation, MacBook Air. Yep, okay, we see all that stuff, boring. We see all of this other stuff. It seems like, I hate when they do this because it's like, wow, look, you get so much stuff with it, but then it's like a little insert right here where you don't get that much. Silver stickers, very nice. And then built-in battery and charging, warranty information, stuff like that. That's boring. Who cares? Let's check out the new charger, because I do believe they sent me the 2 USB-C charger. Yeah, this is way smaller than I thought it was going to be. Normally, Apple included chargers. They're bigger, and you only get one. So seeing this as very small and having 2 USB-C ports, I actually really like this. It is 35 watt. I am sad that my personal version of this does not have it because that pushed out the ordering for a while. So I will be ordering one of these as soon as it comes in. I really like that. We get a MagSafe cable like we did with the MacBook Pro 14 and 16. And this is a very high quality feeling cable. Braided. Feels good. They're not skimping out on the components on us, thank goodness. Okay, well let's get to what we're actually interested in. The laptop itself. This feels light. We haven't even opened it up yet, but this feels really light, and it feels more angular, just like the 14 and the 16. Okay, here we go. Oh wait, was this one better? That was a little better. Wow. From the outside, this looks just like a mini MacBook Pro 14. I really like Apple's new design language, like with the iPhones and the new MacBooks, where it's more right angles. I like right angles. I don't like the rounded look so much. Maybe that's a personal preference thing, but I really like it. Wow, this thing looks so good. The Starlight looks way better in person than I thought it would. We get the 2 USB-C, which is Thunderbolt 3, which does suck. We get the MagSafe. We get a headphone jack, which is funny because other laptop manufacturers that are redesigning their products seem to be taking away ports, whereas Apple seems to be giving them back. I don't love Thunderbolt 3, but I like at least that we can charge it separately and then have 2 different ports. But here we go, opening it up. Woohoo! You're definitely not gonna have heard that through this microphone, but the speaker sound when the done for the Apple turning on, that sounded really good. So I'm hoping the speakers on here are much better than the 2020 model too. Look at that display. That looks real good. This looks fantastic, and it looks very similar to the 14 and the 16-inch MacBook Pro because you got the notch, you got the thinner bezels. It doesn't have the same kind of refresh rate, HDR capabilities, or things like that, but I still think this looks fantastic. It looks way better than the M1 MacBook Air. So something you'll notice about the design language with this one as opposed to previous MacBook Airs, it does not have that like wedge shape. Now I really liked the wedge shape of the previous MacBook Airs. It just made it a very comfortable computer to type on. Some MacBooks have very jagged edges that make it uncomfortable to work with for long periods of time. But right now, the edges here feel a little more rounded. The edges, hold on. I had to go grab my M1 Max MacBook Pro 16 to see if that was all in my head. Okay. It might just be in my head, but the edges here feel a little more rounded than the MacBook Pro, like the 14 and the 16. That was one of the things that I really don't like about the MacBook Pro 16 is because you see how tall it is? When you're doing a lot of work off of it, you'll get those like lines in your forearms, and this will get uncomfortable after a period of time. That's what I like about the M1 MacBook Air is because of the wedge, it's very comfortable to type on. But this, because it's thinner, it's lower to the desk, and these do feel less sharp. I think this is going to be a fantastic computer to type on. Let's actually see what we get under the hood. And again, I will say this in every Apple unboxing video. I love that the accessibility options are right up front. Can you see that? Like, it's just so good. Everybody has different needs. Everybody experiences the world differently based on your own needs. And having accessibility right up front is just Nobody else does that, but everybody needs to start doing this because there could be a person that needs to orient their computer for them, and searching through menus after the fact just makes that awful. I really like that Apple does this right up front. I remembered my Wi-Fi password right off first try. Is somebody that doesn't really connect to my Wi-Fi all that often. Sometimes I have a habit of forgetting it. Okay, and here we go. We are on the M2 MacBook Air. Now let's do a size comparison. This is the 13.6 M2 MacBook Air. This is the 16-inch M1 Max MacBook Pro 16. Look at that. That is a ginormous size difference. They're only what, like 2 inches difference, but that's a 2-inch diagonal width of the screen difference. And so one of the things that I like about the MacBook Pro 16 is how it's like the closest you can get to having a desktop computer with you at all times when you're traveling. But I don't always need that kind of oomph. And I really like how small, but the 14 and the 16-inch feeling of this one. Here, let's check it out to the M1 MacBook Air. Okay, we're just grabbing all sorts of laptops today. So this is my M1 MacBook Air, favorite computer made in recent memory. What is the size difference like here? Whoa! Holy crap, can you see that? There's like, if there is a size difference, there's a teeny bit of a size difference, and it's minuscule. I get that they've decreased the size of the bezels, but I really thought they were gonna have to make the computer a little bit bigger to get all that more screen size in there, but this is very, very close. Look at that. At the back, the width looks very similar. Yes, there's going to be a difference because you can see here the M1 MacBook Air does have that wedge that I was talking about. I believe, and it doesn't matter for like all practical purposes, I believe that the M1 is wider at the back end than the M2, but obviously the M2 is wider in the front than the M1, but you're never going to tell the difference when it's in a book bag. They both have USB, they both have the Thunderbolt 3, which sucks. I really, really wish they'd put in Thunderbolt 4 in this year's model. But when you open it up, they look real similar. They did get, you can see here, this is the old style Touch ID sensor, whereas this is the new style that we'll see in the MacBook Pro 14 and 16. You get a much bigger escape key this time around. It looks like they just subtly changed the keyboard around, not too much. The keys themselves look to be a little slimmer, like a little closer, not as tall as last year. You can see also the M1 MacBook Air has top firing speakers, where the M2 MacBook Air does not. Where are the speakers at? They got to be right back here in this little grill. Neither of these computers has a fan. Neither has an active cooling system. They both rely on passive cooling systems to make sure that they stay within thermal constraints. Never had a problem with the M1 MacBook Air. We're going to have to see about the M2 MacBook Air because the M2 is more powerful than the M1. So how are they able to treat that in this chassis? But let's see the screen difference. That is a shockingly big screen difference. Can you see that? There is a ton more usable real estate on the M2 as opposed to the M1. Wow. We probably won't appreciate it the most until we start working on it. Yes, the notch exists, but notches don't bother me. You forget they're there within a couple of minutes, but I like that the function buttons are all a little bit bigger too. It does look like the keyboard itself is just a little bit bigger, so they could fit in these more traditional size keys like we would see on one of the bigger machines. Like I said, we get macOS Monterey. It ships with 12.4, 8 gigabytes of memory, storage, like I said, 512 gigabyte solid state drive. Now, the price difference between these two is pretty striking because Apple is still gonna sell the M1 MacBook Air and the M2 MacBook Air concurrently. This is just, you can't beat this for price. You can get this refurbished for what, like $849 or even cheaper on some websites. This is still gonna be, the M1 MacBook Air will continue to be the best value laptop that you can buy, period. There is nothing else in the market that can compete with this anywhere. Like even Windows laptops can't really compete with this until you start getting like big gaming machines. But for the M2 MacBook Air, we're gonna have to see, is it worth spending a little bit more money to get all of these additional features? Yes, the screen is nice, but I'm not sure that there's gonna be a big practical difference between the M2 and the M1 MacBook Airs. We'll have to see. If they had Thunderbolt 4, this would be much easier, but they don't, which is frustrating. But what about you? Let me know in the comments below, what would you like to see about the M2 MacBook Air, specifically mine, that will be coming in tomorrow? And if you like this video, click here to watch me recommending the best accessories for the M2 MacBook Air. Click, 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 click. Thanks for watching.